They do not light up the same way for everyone. You may have noticed it at a family dinner or during a quiet afternoon visit, watching your grandmother's whole face change the moment you walked into the room. Not politely, not warmly, but completely. Like something that had been dimmed for a long time suddenly had power again. This is not your imagination. And it is not just love in a general sense. What happens inside an elderly person when a grandchild enters the room is one of the most psychologically rich phenomena in human aging. And most families never stop long enough to understand what they are actually witnessing. Picture this. It is a Sunday afternoon, and the house has been quiet most of the day. Your grandfather sat with his coffee going cold on the table beside him, answering questions at lunch with short sentences, smiling when he was supposed to smile. Then the front door opens and his teenage grandchild tumbles in with a bag over one shoulder and muddy shoes, and before that grandchild has even said a word, something shifts in the room. His posture changes. His eyes sharpen. He says something teasing and quick, something almost playful, and for a moment, for just a real and visible moment, he does not look like someone managing the weight of old age. He looks like himself, the version of himself that existed long before any of that weight arrived. That is not a coincidence. That is biology and psychology doing something very specific and very deliberate. Research into aging consistently shows that elderly people experience what psychologists call role release around grandchildren, meaning they are temporarily freed from the identity of being old, sick, limited, or burdensome. With their own children, most elderly people carry an invisible tension. They do not want to worry them. They try to appear stronger than they feel. They self-edit constantly, choosing what to say and what to keep quiet because they are aware that their adult children are watching for decline, measuring mood, assessing function. That kind of love, as real as it is, carries a certain pressure. Grandchildren carry almost none of that pressure. The relationship is tilted differently. There is an emotional generosity in how grandchildren tend to see their grandparents, not as someone to be managed or worried over, but as someone interesting, someone with stories, someone safe. And elderly people feel that. They feel it in a way they cannot always articulate, but respond to immediately and fully. There is also something neurological happening. Positive social interactions with people who generate genuine warmth trigger measurable increases in dopamine and oxytocin in the aging brain. But the particular quality of the grandchild interaction seems to activate something beyond ordinary affection. Studies in social gerontology have found that grandparents report higher levels of what researchers call meaning and generativity in their relationships with grandchildren than in almost any other relationship in late life. Generativity is the psychological need to invest in the next generation, to feel that something of yourself is being carried forward. Grandchildren are living proof that this happened. Every time they walk into a room, they are walking proof that your grandparents' life produced something that will outlast them. And underneath all of it, there is something even simpler and more human than any of that science. When your grandparent looks at you, they are not seeing only you. They are seeing every version of you that has ever existed: the baby, the small child who once needed to be carried, the awkward teenager they watched become a person. They hold all of those versions simultaneously in a way that no one else in your life does or ever will. That kind of seeing, the kind that carries your whole history, is a form of love so particular and so rare that most people do not have words for it. What they wish you understood is that those moments when they light up around you are not them being cheerful or polite or performing wellness for the family. Those moments are when they are most fully themselves, perhaps more fully themselves than at any other point in their week. The rest of life in old age can feel like a long process of subtraction, losing independence, losing friends, losing the version of the world that made sense to them. But you, a grandchild, represent addition. You represent continuation. You represent the part of the story that is still being written. What they wish you understood is that they are not always able to say how much it means when you simply show up. Not with gifts, not with plans, just with your actual presence and your actual attention. Because when you sit across from them and ask a real question and actually listen to the answer, something in them that has been very quiet gets loud again. They feel chosen. Not out of obligation, not because you had to come, but because you wanted to. And the difference between those two things, to someone in their 80s, is the difference between loneliness and belonging. What they wish they could tell you directly is this, that the light you see in them is not just happiness, it is recognition. It is the feeling of being known by someone who came from them, who carries something of them forward without even trying to, and who makes the whole long life feel like it was pointed in the right direction. There are one or two things that do not require much from you, but that mean more than you know. The first is simply to come back. Not because anything is wrong, not because someone asked you to check in, but because you chose to. Call on a random Tuesday with no reason. Stop by on a Saturday afternoon when you have a spare hour. The unexpectedness of it matters enormously. It communicates that they crossed your mind not out of duty, but out of genuine affection, and that lands somewhere very deep in an elderly person's heart. The second is to bring your real self, not the version of you that is patient and performing respect, but the actual you, the one who is stressed about something, or who watched something funny last night and cannot stop thinking about it, or who has a question you have been sitting with. Share that. Because when you treat them as someone worth your realness, worth your actual interior life, and not just your careful visitor behavior, you give them something that almost no one else does. You give them the experience of still mattering to the world that is currently happening, not just to the world that already passed. They lit up when you walked in because you are, to them, one of the best things that ever happened. They just do not always have the language to say it in a way that makes it land. But it is there in their face before they have even said a word, in the shift in the room, in the way their voice changes, in the way the afternoon feels different the moment you arrive. Understanding the people who raised you is one of the quietest and most important things you can do with the time you have together. They are not hard to love. They are just waiting to be truly seen.